Media. As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Obscurity Now. My name is Steve, and with me is my co-host,
Yahel. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm ready to delve deep into the void of obscurity and see what we can scoop up and put into a little bag. That's right.
What are we doing with this bag, Steve?
Well, you throw it away, because if you leave it in the park, you'll get fined. That's right. This is a dog poop analogy.
I thought this was the environmental episode.
Oh, no, we'll save that for Captain Planet if we ever get around to that.
A very special episode of Obscurity Now.
Yes, where we learn how to save the environment. That's very 90s. And speaking of 90s, boy, we've got a film that is straight out of the 90s today. What film is it?
Yes, it is.
Yahel.
It is GenerationX.
That's right. It's a Fox TV movie. But before we get into it, if you're listening to us live and you can't make it through the whole episode, because boy, are they long. Although we're trying to keep it down, you can always come back later, watch us on YouTube, or if you're one of those multitaskers while you're doing yard work or, building a barn or something, you can listen to us on wherever you find podcasts. What's your favorite way to enjoy Obscurity Now, Yahel?
As a host.
Well, there's only two people who get to do that for now. I mean,
I use whatever Android app I use for my podcast. I can't remember the name of it. It is Podcast Addict. It shows up if you do a search. I'm sure it shows up on pretty much anything that is tied into Apple's iTunes search engine.
Wow, I wasn't expecting like a professional answer. Speaking of phones, I just had to mute mine so I can give everyone my undivided attention as we talk about Generation X. And we're going to get right into it. So here's our feature presentation bumper.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
What did you say?
Oh, I was hosting the channel on my Twitch channel, and it's working.
Oh, fantastic. Yep. I can see all the people in the chat already. It's working like gangbusters. But, so, Yahel, what is your history with Generation X, either be it the comic book or the movie, not the actual generation?
I had never seen the movie. I vaguely remember its existence. I'm sure I saw it advertised or heard sort of it throughout the years. And even though I was a pretty avid reader of X-Men comics in the 90s, I never read like any of the Generation X comics. Like for me, it was hard enough to like get like to know all of the years and years and years of backstories of like the regular X-Men books. I wasn't about to add another X title to my X life.
Right. Your X life. So all this time you've just been a corporeal spirit. I always knew it.
Pretty much.
You should probably be more of a Ghost Rider fan then in that regard. But no, I actually watched this movie in quotation marks on Fox when it premiered. And then I remember going to school the next day and me and my friends talking about it and how we felt about it. Much like we're going to do here, but now it's 2021, not 1996. Is that the right? Yep, 1996.
So this was on Fox News, the network, not like not one of their cable offshoots.
It was on the regular Fox network, like where you would find such shows as The Simpsons or Martin or In Living Color.
Yes.
Yeah, those were big staples in my life.
Or Lego Masters. Builders, whatever that new show with Will Arnett is.
Oof, I don't know.
It'll be obscure soon. Trust me, it looks pretty bad.
Well, man,
It's a future episode of
yeah,
ours.
sure. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I sat down and like watched actual like Fox network. Ooh, I mean, that just gives me the willies here. But no, as far as the comic book goes, yeah, I remember when the comic came out. In fact, speaking of the comic, there's the #1 cover right there. I remember it was a really cool chromium cover, and now the comic, it actually came out 2 years prior to this cinematic masterpiece. And much like yourself, I mean, despite its cool color and the fact that it was a #1, because I'm sure, you know, they were thinking, oh, even back then, they were like, oh my gosh, so much X-Men continuity. We need a #1 for all like the hip kids to jump into.
Right.
They don't have to worry about your, your daddy's X-Men. But yeah, I mean, I was never interested in like this is basically X-Men, Junior. Like these are like the training guys. Like why would I want that when I could when I could read Rob Liefeld's X-Force, where
the real X-Men.
these mercenaries doing things with lots of guns and messed up feet and pouches. I mean,
yeah, I was just gonna say these guys barely had pouches.
Yeah,
I mean,
how disappointing. But the art, because I did read the #1 issue to compare it to the TV movie. Did you get a chance to read it by any chance?
No.
Well, I mean, you didn't miss much. I mean, the art, is pretty great, but like writing-wise, the dialogue isn't that far off from what we got in the movie. The story is basically, it's just them. There's a lot better characterization. Like you get an actual idea of who the characters are, unlike in the movie, which we're going to see coming up. But yeah, basically they just go to an airport for some reason, and then they happen to run into, I guess, who was going to end up being their main villain, this weird-looking elephant man type guy. In fact, that was like one thing. Jubilee in this issue is like so obnoxious. Like everything she says is like a quip, or she calls the guy like Snuffleupagus at one point. Just a constant stream of like references and stuff, and it's like, come on, like dial it down just a little bit. But it's
it's like a 2017 Roman Reigns promo.
Yeah. Is that how they are? I don't know. I haven't.
Did they had him say "suffer and succotash"?
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. But let's take a look at the wiki for the comic. Let's hope there it is. Oh, nope, that's not it at all. Give me 1 second. And there we go. All right, so you're seeing the wiki now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Generation X is a fictional superhero team appearing in American comic books published by Marvel Comics, a spin-off of the X-Men. The team was created by Scott Lobdell and artist Chris Bacalo. Generation X debuted during the 1994 Phalanx Covenant storyline and appeared in their own monthly series in September 1994 with Generation X #1, November 1994. The Generation X consisted of teenage mutants designed to reflect the cynicism and complexity of the series' namesake demographic. Unlike its predecessor, the New Mutants, the team was not mentored by X-Men founder Charles Xavier at his New York estate, but by Banshee and former supervillainess Emma Frost at a splinter school in Western Massachusetts. It would have been funnier if they opened it up like down in Florida, but I don't know. That's just where my mind goes sometimes. The book's original creators left in 1997. The series was canceled at issue 75 in 2001. 16 years later, the original series that ended. Second volume debuted in 2017 as part of Resurrection, with Jubilee mentoring a group of students in rechristened Xavier Institute. So it lasted 75 issues. Not bad.
Okay.
Considering...
for an X book, that's kind of bad, though.
Yeah. Well, I think even then, the market was probably already, like, going down.
Yeah.
But let's see. I think I had some other... there's the White Queen again. That's how you get the boys to buy comics, right there. All right, so this is a picture of the comic book version of Generation X. And because I thought it would be interesting to compare the comic book one to the one we're going to see in the movie. So let's see who's here. We've got obviously the White Queen and Banshee. Everyone knows them. And then M, like, she doesn't even look like this in the comic, but her name is Monet and Chamber. He's in the middle there. Husk. There's no Husk in the TV version.
Yeah.
And Skin. I mean, nobody looks like how they do in the movie at all. Penance. And Jubilee not wearing her yellow trench coat for once. So take a look at that picture right there, Yahel. Burn it into your memory.
It's burned.
And so now here's the TV version. What is that? I added those names myself.
Buff.
Yeah. They made up some people for this. Now we've got Banshee and the White Queen / Emma Frost, and then there's Monet again. Skin, who looks nothing like he does in the comic. Jubilee. And Mondo, who I'm told premiered in issue number 3 of Generation X. And then this guy who was made up specifically for the movie. I think he's like basically the living embodiment of the 90s, but he's known as Refrax. And I can't remember if I mentioned Buff or not, but she was also created just for the show. And they're like they're like power sets are really confusing, and plus are hardly ever even basically
the powers are barely used.
For sure. So I mean, that's basically the comic. So all right, here's my basically this is stills from the movie. So now we can get down to business with the IMDb of the film. Did you have anything else to say about the comic, Yahel? It sounds like it wasn't really a part of your quote-unquote ex-life, as you said.
No, but I did Google a little bit just to have some kind of familiarity with the comics. And the first thing I noticed once I started the movie was that, hey, some of these people I didn't see them mentioned when I was reading about the comics. So I thought they were going to pull like they did with the thing that they did with the X-Men animated series. I'm like, oh, well, they're going to kill like one of these new characters. So that was my hope. By the end of the movie, I was really hoping for some death. There's mine.
Well, from what I was reading, this was also supposed to be a pilot for either a future Generation X TV show or a series of TV movies. So, yeah, they should have given us at least one morph that they could kill off in the first or second episode. But no, sadly, spoiler alerts, they all live. And the most entertaining guy, well, he ends up in a weird dream coma, but we'll get to that towards the end. Anyway, okay, so here's the synopsis for Generation X, the Fox. Well, first off, it was released in 1996. It's a TV movie, February, and on Fox, basically. It's directed by Jack Shoulder and written by Eric Blankeny. And here's a synopsis. A group of young mutants, humans with a genetic variation that gives them superpowers and makes them feared by the population at large, begin training at a school for heroes. Their studies are interrupted when they must rescue one of their own number from a mad scientist who can enter others' dreams. Yes, Professor Kruger should have been his name. But they might have gotten into a little bit of copyright problems there. Yeah, just a bit. So the cast here is start off with who I think is like the only shining beacon in this muck.
I wonder who you're going to say.
Yeah, Matt Frewer, a.k.a. Max Headroom, a.k.a. the villain, Russell Tresh, who I saw was never in any of the comics, as far as I could find. After that, we have Finola Hughes, who was Emma Frost. Jeremy Ratchford was Sean Cassidy, where I also saw that he voiced him in the animated series as well.
Yeah.
Heather McComb was Jubilee. Augustin Rodriguez is Angelo Espinosa, a.k.a. Skin. Randall Slavin is Kurt Pastorius. Bumper Robinson was Mondo. Susan Davis is Arlie Hicks, and Kurt Pastorius is Refrax, if I'm not mistaken. It was produced by Avery Arad and Stan Lee, the powerhouse that brought us all of those Fox cartoons. And the production companies is, of course, Marvel Productions, MT2 Services, and here's, oh man, this one just says it all, New World Entertainment Films. Are you familiar with New World Entertainment Films or New World Entertainment, Yahel?
No, Steve. When I saw that logo at the end, I was like, who?
Well, let me enlighten you. That is a Roger Corman's company. The B-movie mogul, Roger Corman. He did like Carnosaur, and I mean, he's made more movies than there are stars in the sky. Yeah, later on, he basically moved into TV, and yeah, I mean, his company did the original, unreleased Fantastic Four. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh yes, the 1994 Fantastic film.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that just says it all, because this is this is everything like Roger Corman is about, for the most part, except for like if you watch like his early films, especially in like the 70s and 80s, there's usually like a lot of action and violence and adult situations. Obviously, since this is a Fox TV movie, all that's going to be removed, and they're not going to have the budget to do very many superpowers. And yeah, so I guess we should just get right into it.
Yeah. Oh, so that Jeremy Ratchford guy, did you know that he had also played Logan before?
No, the Wolverine Logan?
No. Logan in Tech War, which was like an IP created by William Shatner.
I know Tech
You might
World.
know him as Captain Kirk from Star Trek.
Oh, is this you reaching to try to make a Star Wars connection already? Or Star Trek? I'm sorry.
Star Trek.
Whoa.
Sir.
You were just
No,
sorry.
at first I was, because I didn't think there were going to be any other Star Trek connections, but then I saw our good buddy Matt Frewer in this.
Yeah, he was in a few
and
episodes,
he is
right?
Actually,
He was in a few episodes, right?
he's in one episode of TNG where he plays like a thief from the future, or a thief that who's pretending he's from the future.
Oh.
But yeah, so then I was like, oh, okay, great.
I really want to see that now.
He's great in it.
So, but do tell me, when did he play Wolverine?
He didn't play Wolverine. He played a character named Logan in an episode of Tech War.
Oh, man! I thought you were being sarcastic. That's a real problem. You need to work that out.
Steve, I had to like scour to find this, and because like when I saw him at first, because I didn't like remember, I didn't know what the Max Headroom guy's name was, and I was like, okay, well, Jeremy Ratford first. Like I'll start going through, and I'm like, oh, this is probably gonna be the only guy that I'm able to connect. So yeah, that was my very loose connection to Star Trek. He was in an episode of Tech War, which was created by William Shatner, who of course is Captain Kirk.
Bravo! I actually watched Tech War quite a bit back. We should we'll have to do an episode about that at some point. But
I watched a few episodes. I don't really remember much more, but yeah, I'd be down.
But I even had a few of the comics. But anyway, that's wow. Way to reach there. I love it. But yeah. So here I have some questions about. First off, before we spoil this movie, even though we probably already have, you can watch along, or you can watch it first before you join us on YouTube. I guess it's readily available since Fox doesn't want to admit that it exists.
Yeah, no copyright claims on it. Usually when they've put a claim on something on YouTube, it'll say, a little blurb underneath the video. Nope. They're just like...
Oh, man, I was so close to cutting out like clips, because there's some really objectionable dialogue in this that would easily cause this film to get canceled here in 2021.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to take any chances. But we'll just say it. That's much better than having someone else do it for us. But anyway,
yeah.
So on your copy that you watched, did they have the Marvel logo at the beginning with the
Yeah,
same here.
So they added that in.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. That
I was like, wait a minute.
that thing didn't even exist.
It's like the logo from like 2000 from like Iron Man 1
Yeah,
or 2.
yeah. I think what we watched was like the European bootleg, because I think it's here in my slideshow. If you're just listening and not watching this, there's a beautiful slideshow going on in front of us that's showing just different clips from the movie. But yeah, someone uploaded like a faux, like photoshopped VHS cover that I think they probably used to sell this movie at Comic-Cons and whatnot, because I remember seeing it for sale on various vendors' tables back in the day, because who wouldn't want to watch this beautiful movie again? I mean, I'm glad we did. But it's our job.
And this movie, interestingly enough, the version that we watched on YouTube, it has like full-on cursing. Like they dropped the F-bomb a couple times.
That's the European version. Yeah, all right. So I just wanted to make sure we watched the same one. Yeah, that was kind of surprising. It also made me question, like, I was like, wow, I can't believe he said that. Could they? And then I'm not talking about the swearing. I'm talking about some of the more racist and pervy things. I'm like, did they have that back then? It just didn't register, or
racism? Yeah, they've had it for a while.
I mean on Fox. I mean, was it showed on Fox? I mean, usually they just keep the racism behind the screen, and don't really put it in front of the screen. Right. Yeah. So anyway. So we open up. We have a cold open, basically. That's what they call it in the TV biz. Where someone who's wearing dinosaur gloves from Party City is being operated on in, I guess, some government facility. And I mean, this really sets the tone for the whole film. Like, they're about to cut into this dinosaur man. Who knows? Let's pretend that it's Sauron. Everybody knows that guy, right?
Sure. Dr. Sauron from Star Trek GenerationX.
Yeah, that's who I was referencing. And definitely not the big green pterodactyl guy who lives in the Savage Lands.
Right.
They're about to cut into him for some reason, and bam, door bursts open, and in comes Emma Frost, and then she heroically pushes the guy away. Like, there's no, like, she doesn't use any of her powers. It's not even, like, filmed particularly well. She could have, like, kicked him or something. No. She just pushes the guy out of the way. And that just says everything about this film. And she's like, you need to not operate on this dinosaur man. And they're like, oh, like, basically they just give him a sort of slap on the wrist, a little boys will be boys thing. And then they're like, yeah, he's just a mutant, so we're going to do it. And so... Yeah,
they literally say, he's a mutant, he doesn't have any rights.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. They gotta hammer home the old analogy there. And then she gets mad and turns on her powers, which consists of, like, leaf blowers and strobe lights. And then the guys is sort of like, they're sort of pushed back, and then she points at them very dramatically and exits. And that's our cold open for Generation X. Did that grab you as a viewer and make you want to know more, or did it just make you laugh or make you question your life choices?
All of the above, Steve. It made me want to grab my phone and quit the podcast.
Well,
it just doesn't work because, we don't know at that point what her powers are. I mean, sure, if you've read the comics, okay, fine, you know what her powers are, but, like, the scene does nothing to help you know right away, like, what her powers are, what she's there for. Like, it was really not good. You would think a cold open like that would be used to establish some of the overall themes in the universe, a character or two, and in this case, since it's a superhero movie, some powers.
Right. Basically, all it is pretty doctor intervene, point, and leave.
Yeah, and, like, some cops come in and, like, say, oh, no, we got to take... So these doctors are going to experiment on this guy. Emma Frost is there to save the lizard guy. Then these cops come in and say, well, no, stop. Not only are you not going to experiment on him, but you're not taking him either. We are. He's going to mutant jail or whatever because he doesn't have any rights. And then, like you say, they tell the doctors, like, oh, this is cleared by so-and-so. They're fine. They're not in trouble.
Gosh, get it together.
And then she points.
Government bureaucracy.
Yeah. Real weird, very confusing.
Much like the movie. And basically, I mean, just for a stark overview of the entire film, we get we get the cold open, a very short act one, the longest act two in cinema history, and then 5 to 10 minutes of an act three slash resolve. And basically what this movie really is a teen drama with little bits of sprinkling of superhero stuff. But we're going to illustrate that as we move forward. Let's see, what else do we have here? Emma Frost pushes him. Oh, I like that they actually use the logo from the comic. I applaud them for that, at least.
Sure.
And then I guess we're introduced to... this is kind of... All right, so we are actually introduced to a few of the Gen Xers. We start out with Angelo, a.k.a. Skin, who actually is in the comic. And this... they actually tried to be... I mean, aside from the characters that I created for this, they really tried to be as comic accurate as possible. And it's funny because the way they show his powers is he's saying goodbye to his family because he's going to the Xavier's Institute. And then his sister, who's later referenced in the worst
in the worst way possible.
Yeah. Holds on, just loves him so much, can't let go of her brother's hand, and they try to drive away anyway, and then bam, we see that he has basically Stretch Armstrong abilities, aka Mr. Fantastic.
Right, keeps holding on. But at least as goofy as that shot was, at least they established his power.
I agree. But it's...
And her sister might be a mutant too, because that grip strength. Jesus. I mean...
Yeah, wow, you just made me look at this movie in a whole new way. But yeah, so, you at least get characterization for him. And then there was something else I was going to say. Oh, yeah, another thing. I just like how, even in the comics, they kept trying to describe his abilities is something different other than Mr. Fantastic's, but I mean, come on, let's be honest, that's exactly what it is for the most part. Or I would say a toned down version, because they say that he was born with additional skin, and the skin is elastic, so I guess that's why he can't, stretch everything or something. But anyway, we don't need to get too far into that. So next up, we get I think we go to Matt Frewer, or is it Jubilee? I can't remember.
I think we go to Jubilee. No. We go to Matt Frewer because they established that he's been building this machine to go into people's dreams, and he's been hired by some corporation, and they're going to use it for marketing, basically, to get people to buy stuff.
Right, but prior to his the dream machine that he's working on, he's basically been creating subliminal advertising for this company. And this leads to something hilarious in the next scene. Oh, and let's just talk about Matt Frewer and his performance in this. It is so good, but it's so weird because I swear, okay, this movie I think borrowed a lot from Batman Forever. Especially in the cinematography department, because there are neon lights everywhere, and I remember they did that in Batman Forever as well. And then on top of that, I swear, either the director or the producers were like, "Hey, Mr. Frewer, we got you because we couldn't afford Jim Carrey. Do you think you can just act like he would?" And since Matt Frewer is a acting powerhouse, he was like, "Sure, I can do that, no problem." And I mean, tell me you were getting Jim Carrey vibes through his performance. I mean,
yeah, he does manage to make it his own thing, but when you look at it through the lens of it's 1996, it's hard not to make the comparisons to Jim Carrey. And like you said, I'm sure that's what they were going for Jim Carrey-esque performance.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about Matt Frewer, when he does turn on the evil, I believe it. Whereas
he really went for it.
He did. And And it's sad, the last time I remember, I mean, I'm sure he's been steadily working this whole time in like bit parts, probably in voiceover, but the last like big role I remember seeing him in is Watchmen. Do you remember that?
I do not remember him in there.
He played like he's like a villain on, or
the movie or the HBO?
the movie, the Zack Snyder one. He's got like, I don't know, they made his ears even pointier because I guess he just has naturally pointy ears. And he was, I guess, on some talk show complaining about getting beaten up by superheroes or something like that.
I'm sure if I saw it, I'd
yeah,
remember.
but anyway, he's in there. And I just don't understand why his star didn't shine a little brighter because I think he's a genius.
They fear his talent.
It's true. He has the mutant ability of being a good actor. But you know, he's...
Or maybe they're like, hey, after you said that thing at the end of Generation X about Angelo's sister, look, even though I know you were just reading a script, but we cannot be associated.
How about the
with
stuff
you.
he said about Angelo? But we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But yeah, so he hams it up at the Evil Corporation. This is a very typical 90s trope. The superheroes are always fighting a corporation or advertising or something like that.
Yeah.
But then we go to a arcade/rave club. Because you have to have, if it's a 90s movie and you're trying to be hip to kids, you have to have like a rave-esque club scene. And Jubilee is there playing arcade games, just like she was back in the X-Men pilot, which we reviewed all the way back in episode 3. Make sure you check it out. And the best part is that she's playing Virtua Fighter. If there's something terrible, you know Sega's involved somehow.
Oh, come on.
I mean, you had to be thinking. I mean, all right, I felt bad, but I'm like, yeah, I must be thinking this too.
Okay, so when I saw Virtua Fighter, I was like, I thought it was really weird that they specifically say Virtua Fighter, right? So that already like sets off alarm bells that it wasn't some generic made up video game name. So then I'm like, wait, is Sega like involved in this? Did they pay for this promotion? But the way that like Virtua Fighter gets used is basically when we get the reveal of like how Matt's what's his character's name?
Tresh.
The bad guy Tresh. How he was using the Dream Machine to use these suggestions in people's minds to make them play more Virtua Fighter. Yeah, like his face comes out in their minds, but to them it looks like it's coming out of the screen, and he's like, "Play more Virtua Fighter." And then later, like a few scenes later, they're in some boardroom talking about how like, "Oh, look, sales of Virtua Fighter are up." So Sega in this world hired these people to use mind-controlling, brainwashing technology.
I believe it. 90s Sega, they were ferocious.
I mean, dude, like, what a weird way to like be like, yeah, sure, put us down for that.
Yeah,
I'm Sega. I'm okay with it.
For more Sega hijinks, make sure you check out our first episode ever where we reviewed their infomercial, which is very kind of similar to this movie in a way.
Yeah, actually, that Refrax guy reminded me of Max from Absolutely Rose Street.
Oh yeah, well he is Refrax is. I mean, he's basically Bart Simpson as like a 17-year-old or seven. There, see there, that's the Virtua Fighter like sweepstakes that you could enter to. That had something to do with Generation X. But yeah, I mean...
You could enter to win a chance to not watch the movie.
Yeah, yeah, but I felt bad because I remember I also went... Please don't tell anybody this. But I remember my friends and we tried to go watch House of the Dead in the theater, and they have all those Sega logos everywhere, and then that movie was absolutely terrible. So that's why I say if it's something terrible, Sega's involved with it. But of course, the Sonic movie changed all that. They're a new company. They're a powerhouse of media.
Yeah, they're back.
But anyway, back to the powerhouse of TV movies, Generation X. Yeah, we see that Jubilee is clearly Caucasian and not Chinese American. For some reason, she was whitewashed. I don't really understand why.
Really weird too, because they didn't do that to Skin.
No, oh man, he was. Do you think he was too much? Like,
So as a Hispanic person myself, he was like, because I hate whenever there's a Hispanic character in media and they like over Hispanic them, like, just very typical, like, oh, like they'll always make them into salsa dancing or like always like throw in Spanish words in the middle of their sentences. They do these like weird tropes that are just like, it's a small percentage of like Hispanics that are like that. And they came really close to doing that in this movie, but I don't think it was too bad because it mostly happens when he's with his family at the beginning of the movie. So that kind of makes a little more sense because in my family, I know with my siblings, we kind of spoke a lot of Spanglish to each other. But, if I'm talking to like someone who only knows English, I'm not going to sit there and like throw in some Spanish words. Why would I do that? Do I not want them to understand me?
Right.
So I didn't think it was too bad. I did think, at the end, I'm just going to mention this now because I doubt I'll remember too later. At the end of the movie, he has like a little dancing scene where he's like doing salsa moves. So I was kind of like, why?
I'll tell you why that scene was in there, because they were trying to like because of Pulp Fiction, like everything had to have a dancing scene in it in the 90s for some reason. And they even referenced Quentin Tarantino at one point. It's in my notes here somewhere. Another thing about the cinematography is they do what's called a Dutch camera angle, which is that slanted. It's like slanted for no reason, created by the Adam West Batman TV show. And I mean, that's just something that people did, I would say, because that's what they think comic book movies are supposed to look like. Like if you have no idea what you're doing, you'll go, oh, I'll just make it look like Batman. The Batman TV show, which I think like this director, I looked up his stuff. His filmography is basically a bunch of schlock, like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, a bunch of other sort of like sequels and like genre stuff or whatever. So I could see a guy like him just putting in Dutch camera angles for no reason. But let's see. I remember they go to the police station. Actually, that's pretty soon after the scene with Jubilee in the rave, and it's all blue.
Lots of weird lighting.
Yeah.
It's green on the outside. Like there's a bunch of green neon lights that you were talking about earlier on the columns, and then inside where the office part of the police station is, it's like bathed in blue. And I want to say then that the jail had like a purplish tint to it, like actual jail cells. Real weird. Yeah,
for sure. So I forgot, why did she end up in prison or at the police station?
Because so at the arcade, she ends up using her powers while playing. She gets so into Virtua Fighter because, Steve, it's an amazing game. I don't even know why Sega's trying to brainwash people because it's so good. It'll make your mutant powers come out. So she starts zip zapping and like sparks fly everywhere, and then people are like, "Oh, she's a mutant!" And some cops come out of nowhere. Apparently, cops are just constantly on the lookout for mutants.
As well, they should be. They're a menace, Yahel. A menace.
Well, I mean, Steve, obviously, you won't hear me complain about their arrest. But
let's talk about
it's interesting.
Like all the lipstick in the rave is like this weird shiny like at least especially on Jubilee, it's like this, I don't know, it must have been like the popular
I think it was, I don't know, I think they were trying to highlight because she does wear like a yellow jacket. I don't think it's quite a trench. Yeah, actually, it's there in the picture. So she wears like a yellow jacket, so I think they were just trying to highlight the yellow.
But I think some of the other girls had it too. But whatever. It was just, I don't know. I thought it was funny that they all had...
I don't know. Jubilee's character was so effervescent, I couldn't pay attention to anything else on the screen.
Oh, man, she was awful. Like, I think that Jubilee is what kept us from getting a Jubilee in the regular X-Men, like, feature film. I think they sat down and they were like, should we go with Jubilee? Oh, no. She sucked in the Generation X movie. Let's just do Rogue instead. I mean...
Well, something else about the arcade was, and I don't want to like drag on the conversation about this one scene too long. I don't want this to be a 5-hour podcast, but did you notice that in the background there was an X-Men arcade machine?
Oh, how could I miss that? No.
And it was put. It took almost a quarter of the screen, so it definitely was on purpose. So in this world, there's like X-Men arcade. There's like X-Men characters and real mutants also.
That's funny, but I also think that's kind of interesting. I guess to jump ahead a little bit. Okay, so basically to get out of the police station, that's when Banshee, sounding like the Lucky Charms leprechaun, and Emma Frost show up. And we finally get to see her actual powers instead of just strobe lights and, leaf blowers. She uses her mind control powers to get Jubilee out of prison. And here we get one of our many 90s references, which I think I wrote them all down. Obviously, I missed the X-Men arcade one. She goes, Officer Hootie and Blowfish. It's so bad. I love it. And then they end up, just to jump ahead real quick, they end up at the Xavier Institute. But as the movie goes on, they never even talk about or make reference as to why Xavier or any of the mutants they're just nowhere to be found. It's like they were living somewhere else at the time. And yes, we read earlier that in the comic book, they were trained at a different location. Why didn't they just use that? Why did they have to use the Xavier's Institute for?
Yeah, because in this film, it's like the implication is this is the Xavier school for the gifted.
Absolutely. And also another fun fact, they used this same, I guess it's a castle, for the Xavier Institute in X2.
Yeah. I had a feling it was used in one of the movies because I'm like, man, this looks so familiar, like it was used before. So I'm glad you looked that up.
Feels like home. So let's see where we're going here. All right, so basically our new characters show up. All the other X-Men, excuse me. Whoa, my mistake. All the other
X-teens.
Yeah, the X-teens.
Well, they're still teens.
Right. They're
not X-teens, but they are X. All right.
I like X-teens. They should have gone with that at some point.
But then it sounds like they're not teens anymore.
Oh yeah, like they're dead.
I just meant like they're adults.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure most of these actors are 18 to look younger, if not older. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so they're all playing football. It's a nice co-ed game of football. By the way, just look at all the diversity in this film. Diversity wasn't something that was just created by Disney 5 years ago, just so everyone knows. Then we basically get the old, hey, check out the new kids, kind of cliche trope. And Refrax and the other guy who, I wasn't even sure that guy was, but Mondo. And again, they really tried to be comic accurate because in the comic that guy's a Samoan, and I think that actor is probably Samoan. At least
I was just gonna say I don't know if it's diversity as much as they were trying to stay. In fact, I would say this film actually fails the diversity and the diversity department because they made Jubilee white.
That is
good
point.
So if anything, Steve, I hate to break it to you, this movie is the opposite.
Well, all right, just pay attention to the comics then. In fact, you should probably pretend like this movie never existed.
Yeah. This is not canon for anything.
Right. Yeah. You get to see a bit of people's powers here and there throughout this football game. Is there anything significant that really happens here?
Not really. I mean,
I know Banshee comes out. They all get into a big fight because there's like a big pylon or something, and then Banshee comes out and uses his sonic scream to scream at them all. That's the only time you see it, basically.
Yeah. I think we only see it then and then at the end of the movie, basically. But yeah, not much comes out of this other than to establish that the teens don't get along, basically. None of them really get along with each other except for Mondo and Refrax, whatever. You want to say Reftrax.
Yeah. I love Reftrax, but Refrax, however. We did skip over one kind of awkward scene where for whatever reason, we had to see Jubilee, who's supposed to be 15, take off her clothes and get scanned in to make sure that she's, I don't know, not harboring any bugs or virus. Make sure she doesn't have COVID. looking ahead to the future.
Super weird scene where they want to body scan her and like Banshee's like, oh well, you have to understand, we have to do this.
Yeah. I don't enjoy it at all, aside from all the photos I have in the closet.
Now the funny thing about this, I mean, this scene's not funny at all actually, but they have Emma Frost like go behind Jubilee to do it with her, and she's behind like some kind of partition, right? So like only Emma Frost is seeing her. But then after like while she's scanning her, she turns to what's his face and goes, and it's like, you're next to Angelo, who's also like a teenager, right? So I guess she's gonna be naked with it. Like, I don't know, just very weird.
Oh, but that's okay. Boys will be boys. No, I'm just kidding.
It was and that's not the only weird thing with like underage thing. Like, I don't know, real weird vibes.
Well, like I guess they were desperately trying. I mean, you know, I'm sure they're trying to appeal to like the 16 to 20 something demographic, and I guess they wanted to have some kind of sex appeal in there, but with a character that's supposedly 15, maybe that's not the best choice.
Like, yeah, why didn't they make the sex appeal Emma Frost? Like, I thought that was the way for sure they were gonna go. Like, she's always in lingerie and stuff in the comics, and she's fairly toned down here.
You know what? All right, since we're talking about her, have you seen the other X-Men movie that has Emma Frost in it? I believe it's Apocalypse or First Class. This is actually a better Emma Frost than that one. Like, because this lady actually tries. Where the other Emma Frost, like, she just walked around in lingerie and hardly ever even talked. Like, didn't even have anything to do with...
And when she talked, it sounded like she was going to fall asleep.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I thought that... I have her name here somewhere. Finola Hughes.
And I don't think she's a bad actress.
No, she was good. Normal. I thought she was really good. And the only problem is, much like with our boy Matt Frewer, is that she just wasn't on screen enough. Like, they were focused too much on the Gen Xers. And although I would say most of the Gen Xers are decent and like trying, their characters were just so annoying that I didn't really want to hang out with them. Like, I don't want to be around their teen hijinks, Yahel. Like, it's not like Riverdale. I watch that every week. So let's see, where were we? All right, we got past the awkward scanning. We had the football thing. Banshee comes over and screams. Did Refrax show his power at that point? I can't even remember.
No, they talk about his power. They all say what their powers are, but for budgetary reasons, I'm sure they don't show them.
Oh, yeah, that was the worst about this. And also, that's a very typical trope of New World films, is a lot of telling and not very much showing.
Yeah, like Mondo can turn into, or I guess absorb the properties of whatever item he touches, but like if he picks up like a rock and he uses his power, he doesn't now look like a rock. He just is hard as a rock now. It's really lame. It's very lame.
Right. And so, okay, after they show up, basically after the football scene, we are into Act 2. And boy, does the pacing like just drop, and it gets pretty boring, but there are quite a few 90s references. I wrote here that there was a masturbation joke. Let me see.
Steve, while you're looking up your joke, I do want to put out Human Hyperbole commented, implied, I'm sure this is sarcastic, implied powers are so much more profound than stuff that happens.
Oh, I agree 100%. like I can fly, I just don't want to.
I don't want to show off or get anywhere faster.
Oh, all right. So we get another scene after football. We get another scene of Matt Frewer talking with his corporate friend, and basically he's telling him about the dream machine and how it's gonna, give them so much power and revolutionize everything. And of course, corporate lackey guy is like, I don't know. I don't think the board's gonna like this. And then Tresh delivers the line, "I'm giving you genius, and you're just giving me jock itch." I will say, I do like some of the fun dialogue in this movie, because I think they knew that it was going to be, kind of boring with their lack of money. So they were just like, we'll just have fun with it. But of course, some of the choices aren't the best.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have. Oh yeah, and then the team ends up at a diner at one point, and Mondo has an eat off with one of the other. I guess it's supposed to be like a bully, like a townie, like just a local.
Yeah. They're in town, and isn't it like Angelo that wants to like he like makes eyes with one of the girls that's like friends with these jocks, and then Mondo and Refrax, whatever his name is, they're already inside the diner.
Right.
The jocks and the girl go in the diner. Angelo follows, and Jock, the most alpha of the jocks, notices that she's kind of looking at him and him looking at her. She's like, "Oh, why don't we invite your little friend over here?"
Right.
And they sit down with him, and then they like sarcastically offer him a banana split, which for some reason he's like, "Sure," because that's what you do. Yeah, you're offered a banana split randomly that somebody else was gonna eat, but now they're willing to give it to you, and then they like put his head in the banana split.
Like, all right, so this scene doesn't work for so many reasons. Number one, I imagine like he just so easily went face first in that banana split, like that. It doesn't even make sense. Like there was no resistance at all. Like it was just dumb. It was just there to serve a purpose for their like prank or whatever. And on top of that, isn't he supposed to be like to fit into the horrible stereotype? Isn't he supposed to be street smart? Wouldn't it have been better if he like turned the prank around and then like threw, it's like, I think you'd rather have it, uses the skin, bam, like, face first. The bully goes face first in the banana split, but no, he like a sucker or a mark, if you will. He just goes face first into it, and I mean, again, this is
to be fair, Steve. They do establish. Well, I guess this isn't really a good defense of it because, like, later on, it's established that they shouldn't be using their powers around the town people.
Right. Okay. So we didn't have to use the skin, but just use his street smarts to outsmart the guy. I mean, that's
Yeah. I mean, and you're right because he was suspicious of him the whole time of the jock. Angelo's suspicious of the jock. Like he acts like he thinks something is gonna happen to him, but then does nothing about it.
Right. And here's another sort of odd thing that they sort of just, I felt like was just sort of heavy-handedly like pushed into the movie is I guess Emma Frost was training them all in some sort of mind telepathy or something, but the only one who's like specifically able to use it is Angelo for some reason, which is why they always show him at the computer. I mean, I just thought it was like
excuse me, Cerebral.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I just assumed that was Cerebro. Did they actually call it Cerebro?
Yeah, they call it Cerebro, and all it is a bunch of big CRTs.
It's a board, a soundboard.
Yeah. And a giant mixer board. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And
very, very underwhelming.
Yeah, so for basically no reason at all, he has his skin abilities and the ability to travel into the dreamscape.
Well, he doesn't have the ability to travel in the dreamscape. Like like you said, they're developing all of their powers, their mental powers. And there is that one girl, I think it was M, who could like guess like every card or whatever like that Emma had. But yeah, in this movie, apparently, like all mutants have telepathic powers of some level, and they just have to develop them.
That's not fair. That is lame.
But see, in this movie though, like the mutation gene isn't even like mutations don't even work the way that they do in the comics at all. Like, because later on, Tresh tries to extract the X factor from one of Angelo's brain cells or something, but then Emma says, "Oh, he's been so long in the dream world. Tresh has been so long in the dream world. He may have already mutated."
Oh yeah,
what?
that was horrible.
And he does.
Yeah, that basically broke the world. Like any rules that were set up by Stan Lee and whoever else wrote the X-Men, like that just like they broke it at that point. But I mean, this is before the movies, so I mean, but the cartoon was going strong. Like I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, it's real weird. It makes no sense. Emma even says that like humans could travel in the dream world if they wanted to, but she says it's too hard for people to develop their psychic powers, so they use technology instead.
Now let me ask.
So I guess everybody can just have powers.
Right.
I guess.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think they went with this dream scenario? Because, I mean, as far as I can tell in the comics, there's no trash, there's no dream world stuff. Like, why do you think they went that way? I mean, I have an idea. I just wanted to see what you think.
My guess is budget.
Yeah, there you go.
Because they can make things look sparse and be like, oh, it's because it's the dream world. They can make things look weird with like odd lighting to hide the fact that there's nothing in the set or the set's like poorly built or whatever. So that's how I took it. I'm like, this is definitely a budget thing.
Yeah. Oh, there was also a scene where,
Human hyperbole. I just chimed in also budget.
way to go. Give that guy a job. We'll,
Human hyperbole, you get 2 obscurity bucks.
Yeah, we're going to pay that guy double on what we're making. So let's see here. Oh, yeah, there was, so after the Cerebro scene, we're taken back to one Mr. Tresh, and he is now pitching the Dream Machine idea to the entire board, like the most generic looking business people you can imagine. And God, if there was any kind of like, I don't know, dignity that this movie had, this scene pretty much kills it, where he's like, and I don't even know, again, like how this would work, because like, does your mind control your flatulence? Like, I'll just jump into it. Basically, he says, to demonstrate my power, I went into your dreams last night and implanted the suggestion that at a certain period, like at like 2:45 p.m. today, you're just going to start farting uncontrollably. And basically, every one of the business people sitting around the table just start farting. And I feel like less of a human being for having experienced it.
And dude, like that took a film that already wasn't great, but at least it was like kind of fun though, in the it's not taking itself too seriously kind of a way, and just like really brought it down.
Oh, into the gutter, man. I mean, that just says to me, like, you know how when people treat all wrestling fans like, you know, gutter trash, like that's how I started thinking that like they're like, oh, people who read comics, they're just like infantile, immature, like they just like fart jokes that are deplorables. Yes. And so that I mean, that was unfortunate, really, but we still kept watching for some reason. And yeah, that's when we get the scene. We get some. There's some training at one point.
Well, one thing about the board scene, Steve, if you don't mind,
go for it.
Is the board. They tell him like, okay, we're gonna think over what you said after the demonstration. So they tell Tresh to leave, and the board is like the most ethical businessmen you've ever seen on television, because they're like, guys, we cannot make money this way. This is unethical.
So what you're saying is that they weren't like Sega at the time. It was
which is weird, because like they already knew that like what he was. He just did what they hired him to, right? But then they were like, "This is too much. We can't have the power to make people fart at will."
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was like, "Yeah, this." They sort of did a 180. Like they were like, "Oh," like the writer, he was like, "Oh, big business. They aren't bad. Look at all these ethical people here."
Right.
And so, anything else to say about that? See.
No. I mean, that was. I just want to point out how odd it was that suddenly the executives were the upright citizens.
I mean, in any other movie, one guy would have started slow clapping, and then they all would have started clapping, stood up. He would have gotten a promotion, is what would have happened. And then, before you know it, he's the head of Amazon or Tesla. So after that, there's a training scene in what I guess is supposed to be the Danger Room, but to me it looks like the Aggro Crag from Nickelodeon Guts.
Yes. Or like a poorly lit Quasar.
Oh, Quasar, or Qzar.
Qzar.
Oh yeah, because laser tag was all the rage back then. And then we're treated to Jubilee and her dirty mouth. And there was someone said "shake it toots" to someone. I should have wrote that down better, but But whatever. Yeah, now I start writing. I was like, God, this is dragging. Too much teen drama, not enough superhero action. And
The human hyperbole called it the mild concern room.
that's brilliant, man.
That's really good.
Yeah, that is. Something might be happening. Quick, like arm yourself. Then they. Okay, so we get Refrax and Buff, who are developing a relationship. They get into the back of some vehicle.
Well, it should be pointed out that Buff she's been wearing
Baggy
really
clothes.
huge baggy clothes the whole time because she's ashamed of her body for the unique reason. Admittedly, okay, this is like kind of a unique reason, is that she's very muscular
She's
underneath, and she's like embarrassed by how muscular she is.
so this is the first time someone's ashamed of being in too good a shape. Got it.
Yeah, and actually, Steve, I think back when they were in town during the diner thing, there was a scene where she's like clothes shopping with Jubilee, and she goes to like, you know, try on some clothes or whatever, and they do a shot of her from the back. She like takes off her shirt, so you see from the back, from like the top of her back down, or in her bra, and clearly they just put like a bodybuilder in a bra.
That was so funny. And Jubilee,
he's just, like flexing as he's like,
yeah, Jubilee walked in, and it was all awkward, much like this movie.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I left that scene out,
but it really comes off like that. Maybe could have worked if they would have had some kind of padding under her clothes normally, because you can see she's like a very thin framed person under her big baggy clothes.
Right. And like one of the most, it seemed like, uploaded images when searching for Generation X, the TV movie, is for some reason she's the only one, spoiler alert, who gets a costume at the end. And is she
budget? They could only afford one.
And is she all jacked like She-Hulk? No. Look at her there. She's right there. She looks like the greatest American hero, but as a girl. But you gotta love those shoulder pads, designed by Rob Liefeld himself.
Yeah, and I remember Jubilee catches like a peek of her, and she's all embarrassed. Actually, human hyperbole. He must have been like a big fan of this movie. He's like, yeah, there's lots of peeping stuff that I remember from the movie.
Oh yeah,
and you asked Steve if anything else important came from that football scene when they first got.
Oh, we're gonna get to it. Yeah.
Okay, so then I'll be quiet and let you continue.
Oh well, I mean, okay, so they're making out or whatever, and
they're at a carnival now.
Yeah, well, they were at the carnival, but then they got away from it and went to the back seat of their car, right? Or were they?
Well, I feel like we skipped a ton of stuff because before they get to the carnival, Angelo finds like that Emma Frost's version of a dream machine that's the same thing as Tresh's dream machine.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we skipped over the part where he goes into the dream machine to do his training, and Tresh is in there, and then Tresh tries to leave, but for whatever reason, Angela won't let him go. So he gets...
Well, Tresh doesn't try to leave. The police
That's what happens.
Show up at... And I'll give him credit for this. Angelo establishes to do Jubilee before they start to try out the machine themselves that if you disconnect me from the machine, if you physically pull me out of the machine before I've put my consciousness back into it, I won't be able to reconnect to my body. I'll be like stuck out there and kind of like a vegetable in the real world. And that's what happens to Tresh.
So they could stick to those rules, but they couldn't stick to the rules of becoming a mutant. How about that?
Right.
Yeah. So, and once they're in there, is that when? Okay. So first, I guess one of the driving forces of Tresh is that he needs this. There's some mutant who, if they use his brain, then it'll give his dream machine even more power. And
so, yeah, like Tresh is under the impression that mutants can all go into the dream world whenever they want. He says that to Angela.
Right.
But later on, Emma establishes that Tresh always wanted to take like the mutant X factor from a mutant's brain and give it to himself just because he wants to have mutant powers.
That's what it is. But
yeah, and when they first use the machine, Jubilee goes first. she sees her parents, and they're like kind of like, oh, I wish Jubilee would talk to us. And she comes out of them, and she's like, oh, it was terrible. Don't go in there. And there was a weird guy, like as like Tresh comes up to her, and Angelo like writes like she's like crying in tears, and Angelo's like, well, you shouldn't have visited your parents, you idiot.
Yeah.
I'm going to the machine.
That's what I also liked. They really wanted a reason for Jubilee to go in there. And I think she was talking about it with M. And M was just like, well, why don't you just talk to your parents? And she's like, oh, I don't want to like have to face them and their lies. I want to see what they actually think, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, something like that.
Which, wow, what an awful relationship.
And I think it also helped to establish that later on, Jubilee tries to help Angelo. She's already been in the dream world and can tell Emma, yeah, there's this guy, blah, blah, blah. He looks like this. And Emma knows who it is by Jubilee's description of him and like what he's like.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So, that almost feels like, solid writing there.
Right. They have like, there's some flashes of, the dialogue is pretty bad all throughout, but there's a few good ideas sprinkled in to connect parts of the story. It's just executed very
Sure.
poorly.
Like, I almost feel like it was maybe like two sort of stories put together. It's like, oh, we've got this mutant, movie we want to do, but then we also have this movie that has to do with like dreams and stuff. Like, well, what do we do? Well, let's just put it together. We'll kill two birds with one stone. Genius.
Yeah. And then it kind of becomes like the movie, like at this point, kind of becomes all about Angelo.
Yeah.
And Tresh, while Angelo's in there, because this is important for the carnival scene. Angelo, I can't believe I'm saying this about this movie. Tresh helps Angelo visit the blonde girl that he saw that was with the jocks earlier in the dream world or whatever, and helps to like establish a suggestion in her mind to like want to see him and like him, which to be fair, well, I mean, that's really creepy, right?
Right.
And really kind of effed up. But she already like obviously had a thing for him anyways, because she was like saying that he was cute or whatever to her friends. So, but yeah, so Tresh has now helped Angela.
Yeah.
So,
right. So that sort of establishes their relationship. But the one thing I wanted to reference just about Refrax and Buff, who are like making out or whatever, is his I guess the rest of his mutation kicks in, and
oh, while he's making out with Buff.
Yeah, and she thinks that he's or he goes back and tells Mondo about what happened, and they're standing right
because he suddenly wants to stop making out with her.
Right. Because they gave him X-ray vision, basically. Where before he could only, I don't know, shoot out optic blasts or something.
Yeah, I think that they said that he could see infrared or something like that.
So Predator, and boy is he a predator.
Is he a predator?
Because it's later when he's talking to Mondo. They were talking about her, and he was like, oh, she, feels all, I don't know, muscular or something. He's like...
Yeah, he says that she's solid as a rock. So I guess, like, Mondo and him thought that she was overweight, I guess, before this.
And he was like, man, how do you know? It's like, oh, I copped a feel when we were playing football.
Yeah. And then he, like, tries to say something like, well, I mean, I didn't mean to. It just, we're playing football. As he licks his lips.
Hey, it was the 90s, right? Boys will be boys and all that.
Yeah. Oh, and when they were making out, he's wearing his sunglasses, which he has sunglasses on 99.9% of the movie. But while they're kissing, she says, can you take your sunglasses off? It makes me feel like I'm kissing Quentin Tarantino.
Yes.
And that's what triggers his powers, I guess?
Right.
Like his full powers?
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think. I'm like, was he really known for wearing sunglasses that much? Or did they just want to make a Quentin Tarantino reference?
Well, you have to understand, in 1996, everyone knew what it was like to quiz Quentin Tarantino. So, you remember it, right?
I wish. No, I don't. But, okay. So... yeah, all right, anyway, she freaks out and runs away. He goes to tell Mondo about it, and like the two girls are basically standing right there, and he gets accused of just being a, perv loser or whatever, jerk. And what happens after that? Let's see.
She seems to think that like he was disgusted by what he saw, you know,
Right.
like when his X-ray vision kicked in. Like I guess that's the implication. Human Hyperbole said, "Okay, so my vague memories of this movie being creepy, even for my prepubescent '90s standards, is creepy." Yes, and we have not gotten to the worst.
We're happy to help, brother. Happy to help.
It buckles up.
So basically, after the carnival scene, there's Angelo goes back into the dream world. Or wait, is it a dream, or he gets to dance with that girl that he likes, a la Pulp Fiction style?
That's way later.
Is it?
That's
Man,
way
I must
later.
have got real bored.
Okay, so I watched the second half of it this morning, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. But like you mentioned earlier, Tresh does end up stuck in the dream world because Angelo holds on to him as he's being like physically removed in the real world from the machine. And the weird thing is, Tresh thanks him at first and says, "Oh, I owe you a favor," but then later on, he's like, "You got to help me get back to the real world."
That was weird. It's like they couldn't decide which way they wanted to go. But yeah, so we get stuck, and then
he's like happy about getting stuck at first.
and they move his body to a mental facility.
Right, because in the real world, he's basically unresponsive. He just blinks.
Right. Just a dude in a coma.
Fresh. Yeah, and then after that, Angelos are obviously like already off the machine and back in the real world or what have you. And it's after that that they then go to the carnival scene that we already kind of talked about. And they end up getting into a big fight at the carnival. They get arrested, which I love that they used like a voiceover in the middle of their fight. "You're going to jail." Just to establish it. Like we couldn't have, as the audience, figured out that they were to fight, and the next scene they're in jail.
Comic book fans are really dumb. They like fart jokes, so they need everything explained to them.
Yep. And it was at this carnival that Angelo met back up with the girl in real life, the girl he had a crush on or whatever. And they kind of like walked around for a little bit, and then they run into the jocks again. And that's how they end up getting into a fight. But this time, all the other ex-teens or whatever help out. They end up in jail.
Mondo uses his powers, which
he grabs like a rock or something.
And then one of the bullies tries to punch him, and of course, his hand basically shatters because the guy, he's hard as a rock, to use lack of a better term.
Honestly, I thought that actually made Mondo look pretty smart.
Yeah.
Because he's like, hey, I don't have to hit this guy. I'm gonna let him hit me.
Right.
So I actually like that a lot. I thought that was a pretty good idea.
And that pays off for later because of course we have to get that scene. This might be jumping ahead a little bit where basically the teachers, Banshee and Emma Frost, are giving the old "I can't believe you guys screwed up so bad and went into town and blah blah blah," and that's the White Queen talking, and in the back
Emma Frost.
Yes, but then they leave. Oh yeah, and so she expels all of them, or she expels Mondo, and then of course they're a team now, so they're like, if you're going to expel him, then you have to expel me because it's my fault because I did this and that. And
By the way, I love the way Mondo gets expelled though, because he's like, they give them the third degree about how they're not supposed to use their powers in town or around people, and then Mondo admits to it. He's like, hey, what happened? But this isn't really what caused the fight, and really they didn't use their powers during the fight. He just says, hey, I had touched a rock before that. Right. And the way he says it, it almost sounds like he didn't even mean to necessarily, like it might have been accidental. I touched a rock before that, before he hit me, and blah blah blah. And then Emma goes, I really appreciate your honesty. You're
well, I mean,
she says, actually, I appreciate your honesty. I'll tell your parents that you were honest, but you're
right. Well, they went out of their way to make it to where Emma is the hard ass or the bad cop, and Banshee is the good cop, basically. Because after they leave, they have a little discussion. They reference someone else, I guess, who the White Queen felt, or I keep calling her that. No one calls her that anymore.
Said, like all the kids say, well, if you're going to expel him, expel me, blah, blah. They all do that.
Right. And
Banshee then's like, leave us some time so that me and Emma can
I'm
talk.
going to feed her some of my Lucky Charms. And yeah, so they have a chat, and they reference someone who I guess died previously that Emma Frost
student or something.
felt responsible for. But then Banshee just, used the luck of the Irish his Irish charm to convince her otherwise.
He must have had an accident in the mild concern room.
That's what happened. Like they slipped on a banana peel or something like that.
Yeah.
And so basically, he convinces her otherwise. And I don't know. I realized that, man, like Banshee had very little to do in this entire film. Like it was all like Emma Frost all the time for the most part. He mostly just stood around in the background.
Yeah.
They probably, I mean, I'm glad he was there, I guess, comic book wise, but if they wanted to like keep their budget low, they probably just could have got rid of him. I mean, they really only needed Emma Frost.
But like you said, they needed the good cop there.
Sure.
But so their punishment ends up being that they're grounded for 30 days, which kind of sets up the reason why Angelo then needs to use the dream machine to visit his girl. I can't remember what her name was, but the girl that he's got this interest in.
Right.
And that's when they end up dancing.
Yes, there you go. And then that is also, after that, that's when Tresh comes back and he's like, hey, I need you to do something for me. He was like, you like that girl? And he's like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm going to need you to do something for me. Like, you need to get my body back. And, I mean, at least, like, Angelo wasn't just like, sure. He was like, no, it's in a prison. Like, no, count me out. And that's when we're delivered, like the most, I don't know, I guess, insensitive. I mean, it's funny in a B movie. I mean, he is the villain, like, for that matter. You'd never get
It was so over the top, so unexpected. I laughed too, but it was like not that was funny laugh.
It was like,
oh my God, they said
I know.
that?
I was like, that got on TV, on Fox. He calls him a multi-dimensional. Do you want me to say it? Or
Oh, I missed this. I was talking about what he said about his little sister.
Oh, well, that comes after. Yeah, he calls him. All right, I'll just say it and then whatever. We don't have enough people to get canceled anyway. He goes, listen here, you multi-dimensional wetback.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't that surprised about that.
I mean, is that like not that offensive or?
I mean, no. I mean, it's clearly like a race, like a
sure. I mean, it's
term.
not good. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I guess because it's 1996, I wasn't too surprised.
Sure.
As a Hispanic man, it's something I've heard. And I don't know. I guess that's why.
That's awful.
Just,
but anyway, so yeah, then we're treated, and it just gets like worse from there. Then, all right, he threatens him.
Almost as if it's almost like the line about his sister was to make you forget about the racist thing they just said.
And I thought he said something else prior to what comes next, but he, magically creates his sister out of nowhere, and then he goes, or how would you like it if I mind rape that little sister of yours? And then he licks the actress. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, like what was, and she's young.
Yeah.
I mean, she is not like an adult actor, being used to play a kid. She's I don't know, like what, 11 or so? Maybe
I don't think she was
older?
that. I would say maybe 16, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think she was that. 'Cause she was pretty tall. But I mean, it's still creepy. I mean, I hope it wasn't a choice made by Mr. Frewer, or if anything, hopefully they talked about it ahead of time and it wasn't a surprise for her. And hopefully everybody got paid and was okay with it. But man, yeah. Whew, that was creepy.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was expected. Otherwise, I think she would have had a different reaction. She just kind of keeps making the same face she was already making.
Yeah, for sure. That's true.
But yeah, I mean, I will say, I'm not defending either of the things he said here, but at least it was like the most evil person in the movie saying it.
Sure. I mean,
and it's not.
Yeah, like, Refrax was, I mean, he was treading on pervy ice.
Yeah. But it would have been way worse to me if like Refrax would have said it, or
Sure.
either
See,
of those
like,
things, or even if the jocks had said
right. I mean, at least, yeah, you're right. I mean, at least he was a bad guy doing bad guy things, which I feel like we definitely lack, like bad guys doing bad guy stuff these days. It's all
Yeah,
they're all
but I also feel like very uncreative. Also, like they just like were like kind of like bottom of the rung. Like really, you couldn't think of a better way. Like
fart jokes, man. Fart jokes.
Yeah, like how do you go from fart jokes? It's like very weird. This movie tonally. Human Hyperbole said that would have been an unforgivable ad lib. Yes. Yeah, can you imagine if you're her parents and like this guy just ad lib licking?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of like horrible stories of like, ooh, we didn't tell the actress we were gonna do this because we wanted to get a real reaction. Exactly.
We don't want our actors to act.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully those days are long gone. Anyway, so against his will, Angelo, how does he get the body out of there?
So he tells them that he doesn't need the whole machine to get him out. He just needs the headset and a transistor. I don't know, something like that. Basically, he fits it all like in a duffel bag. So he goes to the hospital. It's low security, which they do say it's minimum security. By that, I guess they mean no security.
Right.
Because he just walks into the room, hooks him up to the stuff, brings him back. And then as they're like leaving the hospital, he's like, all right, well, I'm done helping you. Angelo says like, I'm done helping you, whatever. He's like, no, I need one more thing from you, Angelo. Your brain. And
that was great.
it reminded me of like the short, I don't know anybody listening is going to know about this, but the short film you did where it was like the tuna sandwich.
That was my song, the tuna sandwich?
The song with the video with the brain.
Oh,
and you like put like a brain in it anyways. The way he said your brain reminded me of the way he said, and then I ate it. Either way, you should probably cut that out in the podcast.
No way, I'm leaving it.
But and then the thing I don't get is Angelo has these powers, right? And he does nothing. Like Max Headroom, Tresh, excuse me. He's like a really skinny, unimposing guy. No muscle on this guy. Skin and bones. He should be called Skin. And
it's true.
He just like takes him and like ties him into a machine. It happens off camera, but like next thing we see, he's like got Angelo tied down to like the dream machine.
Oh yeah, that was they definitely skipped over what was probably an important scene, just because they would have been like, well, how can we film this without Skin using his powers? Let's just not film it. But
like at least if like Tresh would have had a weapon or I don't know, a syringe of drugs that he like was around, or because they're at the mental ward.
Right.
Even though that would have been like tropey, at least some kind of explanation.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they were running out of money, I guess, so they just had to get it done.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's we're basically at the final confrontation now, more or less.
Yeah. Jubilee finds out that Angelo is strapped to this machine because Angelo uses his mental abilities. They've awakened just in time.
Yeah.
And he, like a little ghost, a force ghost of him, visits Jubilee at her bed and like tells her what's going on. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of, that's what
basically,
it was, right?
Yeah.
And then tells her, hey, I'm trapped, blah, blah, blah. This is where I'm at. And then Jubilee tells Emma and
the rest of the
Banshee
team
and everybody else what's going on.
We didn't touch on what Tresh was wearing at this point. He's like wearing some sort of kimono or something.
Oh yeah. Actually, he's right there in the shot that was just.
Yeah, it'll come back in a second. But yeah, so all right, he's about to, I don't know, eat his brain, like do something to him. And then finally, the rest of the cavalry shows up. But they don't all sort of come at him at the same time. Like somebody shows up first. I think it's either M or maybe even Jubilee, And then he delivers another pretty funny and kind of creepy line where he goes, "Hold on a minute, honey. I'm just going to get my Barry White albums."
Yeah.
Like, I find that pretty hilarious.
But you know what? He had another funny line too before they showed up. He was about to start drilling into Angelo's head, and this like did make me like legitimately laugh out loud. Angelo has like this kind of like curly, kind of like poofy hair, unkempt kind of style. He's about to drill into his head, and then he stops. Tresh stops, and he goes, "You know, there's something I got to tell you. I got to make a confession. You probably think I'm this terrible guy, blah blah." And he says, "But I really, your hair's awful, and I know you think I'm this awful guy, but I can't let you." Basically, he says, "I can't let you die with that hair." So then he pulls out like a razor. He's gonna give him a haircut.
Yeah, see, I just wonder. I just wonder if any of that was.
Are we supposed to hate this guy or like him? Like,
It just felt like ad lib, like a lot of ad lib from Matt Frewer.
And he doesn't give him a haircut.
No, but
so it was
that hair is basically the hair from the comics on Skin.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Did you think it was weird that like, so before they show up to try and save Angelo, Emma gives them a big speech, right, to the kids about what they're gonna do, how it's dangerous when you see the portal open. Oh, she says, "I'm going to take his entire building, the building that Tresh is in, and put it into the dream world because it's a real place that exists."
Right.
She explains it's a real place. It's always there. It's just that's when she says like humans just they don't have the psychic powers developed to access it, but so she's gonna move the building there, aka we don't have the budget for things. So the fight's going to take place there, and she can't help them because she's going to be using all her powers to like keep the building there. So that's how they all get there. Because that's another thing. Well, how did they all manage to?
They don't have what is the X-Men plane called? The Thunderbird, the Blackbird, something like that.
It's definitely not the Thunderbird. Black.
Yeah, it's the Blackbird. I'm pretty sure it's the Blackbird.
But so like just real weird, and also they have a little moment where Refrax tells Buff that like finally, I guess he hasn't explained this. It's been like a week, and he just now finally explains to her, "Hey, my power's activated, but I looked away before I saw anything." And they smile at each other, and I guess they're okay.
Oh wait, you left out a line. He said, "I just want you to know that you're buff and still the stuff."
He did not say that.
No.
And then they started playing Marcus Buff Bagwell's WCW theme. It was real weird.
That would have been awesome. He should have been in that movie. But anyway, So, it's funny. You say that she took the whole building and put it into the dreamscape, yet they only battle within that one room for the most part. And if you want to even call it a battle. And there's a lot of people sort of standing around and watching what's happening in front of them.
Using their powers.
Exactly. And basically to talk through the battle, it's I think there's a little bit done by Mondo at the beginning. We finally see Jubilee use her powers. Was that the first time? No, she did it at the very beginning. All right, she did it at the very beginning and then at the very end. And it ends with Angelo wrapping his arms around his wacky stretchy arms around.
Oh, we do see Refrax use his laser eye power. So he shoots, but rather than shoot Tresh with his laser beams, he shoots the pipe above Tresh, which gently hits Tresh. Thanks a lot.
That reminds me of the pilot episode of the RoboCop series, where RoboCop can't shoot anyone directly. He has to shoot like an emergency ladder that's like above them, and then it falls on them and stops the criminals.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, the fight sucks.
Yeah.
Like they don't attack him together. They do like one at a time, Power Ranger style, basically, where instead of joining into a Megazord, it's like, I guess, supposed to be building to them using their powers. And then they start to, but they use them very poorly. He like throws M like across M throws him like across the room. But then doesn't he like do the same to her, like as if though he has superpowers?
Yeah. That sounds familiar. Well, no, remember he does have superpowers at that point because his X gene was somehow manipulated by the dreamscape, which makes no sense.
And I guess you're right. And you're right. I mean, I guess that's them alluding to it because then the next thing that happens is Banshee shows up, blows his Banshee power, blows him through a wall. Blows through a wall. He like falls down or whatever. And then there's a hole in this brick wall, but then you see like a much bigger version of Tresh's face appear behind it. And he's like, I'm starting to think my mutant factor's already activated.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And then they do this great shot where they're like, the camera's like kind of like doing this weird forced perspective shot of him. And he's like, I'm feeling very omnipotent.
So good, man. I just wish there was more to watch, like Matt Frewer pretend to be Jim Carrey in. Oh wow. So all right, how does this piece of trash fight scene end? I mean, it basically ends with Skin wrapping his arms around him, and then
well, they call Emma Frost to. I think Skin uses his mind powers to call Emma to tell Emma, "Hey, open the door," or whatever.
Right.
And Emma shows up, and she has a history with Tresh, which we didn't talk about. They were at some school or university or institute together before, and Tresh is, the typical guy with the dangerous ideas. So we don't want him to do his dangerous ideas.
He's a Steve Jobs.
So they have some history. Right. And she's Steve Wozniak. You know the whole story. And she's like basically gonna stay behind and go down and fight him by herself so everyone else can escape. And he's like, you can't defeat me. And she's like, I'm not going to beat you. I'm going to go down. I'm going to take you down with me. So she's going to basically kill herself while killing him is what's implied.
I remember what happens now. Okay.
But it was actually Skin was planning the whole time to like be the one to make the sacrifice. This effect, so he starts wrapping his arms like in circles around Tresh. The effect, it doesn't look terrible. But it's very weird. It's not CG, but it looks CG, even though like it's some kind of physical. Because you see like the way it touches him.
Yeah.
Anyways, he wraps his arm around him. Then he jumps off like a cliff thing.
Right, and they fall into the dimensional whatever.
Yes.
And you think that Skin is dead, but don't forget about his stretchy arm. It stretches all the way back and pulls himself up. And then basically movie's over, except for we find them back at the Xavier School. Yep, exactly, which they shouldn't be at. And they're sitting around talking, being cool, talking about what they just did.
They're playing cards.
Yeah.
And they're playing some weird game. I was trying to figure out, was it supposed to be like Go Fish, but instead they would say Zap? They would like say these weird things.
That's how mutants play cards. Didn't you know?
Yeah, and like at the end, like somebody wins and Refrax or somebody throws his cards down, and on the back of the cards it's like the GenerationX logo.
Yeah, you gotta have that. Yeah, that was another thing, is that the regular X for like X-Men, that logo wasn't really used like at all. I guess they had to pay somebody for that. But anyway, the door opens, and out in a very cinematic style walks a buff in her new red uniform. And I think it's funny, as she's walking, Emma and Banshee, they both like flip out in perfect synchronicity, like some sort of military battalion or something. And like, it's weird, the X symbol on her belt is like reflective. It's like reflecting some sort of lights that I guess they're shining at it off stage. And they're like, here, was Banshee like, well, here you go, kids. Here's your uniforms.
Yeah, he says, what do you think about your new... I can't do it.
That's what it was.
What do you think about your new uniforms? And...
They're shite.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, like you can tell like she's not all like super jacked. Like they showed her earlier, so it like
makes no sense.
Bad continuity.
No sense.
Human Hyperbole was in reference to the card game they were playing. He said that the extreme in all caps version of Go Fish, and that makes sense for the 90s. Everything was extreme.
Yeah. these kids have a lot of tude, a lot of 90s tude,
Yeah.
for sure. And then, all right. And thank God it's, or thank Stan Lee's ghost, it's over at that point.
Yeah.
And I guess it wasn't successful enough to warrant another movie and or a series at that point. So, Yahel, do you think this should be remembered, or should it be banished to the black hole of obscurity, never to be referred to again?
It should definitely be banished. It's a man, like I said earlier, there's a few good ideas, right, and a few attempts at like weaving together a coherent story. But there's also like a lot of disconnect, and like this movie doesn't seem to know what it is or what it wants to be. Does it want to be like a goofy B movie that doesn't take itself too seriously? Does it want to have like a villain that's super, villainous, or a lovable like weirdo?
Right.
And there's lots of like other like small weird things that we didn't touch on. And I like Mondo has like weird body dysmorphia issues. He's like super competitive, and like at one point he's like, "Oh, but I still look good," right? Like about his muscles.
He
or
doesn't
something,
like Jello either.
Refrax. Yeah, because he wants his muscles to like look good and hard or something,
Well,
and like Refrax has to reassure him.
Yeah, maybe these are all things that would have been unpacked, had the series like continue forward. Like they should have, instead of just only introducing us to like 2 of the Gen Xers, they should have unpacked that a little bit, and then having them show up to like a football game where they're all whatever. Like everyone should have been spaced out a little bit better. Like they should have had their own moment where you got to see them use their power. And this is at the very beginning, so you knew who all these people were as the movie went on. But I guess they just didn't have the budget to do that.
Yeah.
And what's that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, human hyperbole, I think, sums it up pretty well. My feelings too. I remember being mad and relieved that the sequel baiting didn't go anywhere, because I'd would if there was like a part 2 or more of this, I probably would watch it just out of like morbid curiosity. But I'm also glad there isn't anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, if there's any reason to watch this movie, like if you're a huge X-Men fan, I think it might be worth it to watch it once. Maybe worth it for Matt Frewer's performance.
He puts in a good performance.
If you want to see like a good White Queen or Emma Frost, they need to really choose one or the other. Like there's a good one here, although she's not on screen very much. I guess only for like the extreme X-Men fan, or if you like sort of 90s time capsule movies, like if you want to see what was like popular when this came out, that might be worth it. But otherwise, you can probably just skip it.
Yeah,
just watch.
I would actually say this is not a great movie for X-Men fans, because I don't know. I mean, outside of it following some of the things from Generation X pretty well, like you don't get like a lot of action. You don't see a lot of powers being used. You're not going to see many characters that you're familiar with.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're correct. I mean, I was saying maybe if you're a completionist, like if you have to see everything.
Yeah, I guess if you're like a super fan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Let's go back to the main screen. There we are. And I think that is going to do it for this episode of Obscurity Now. Is there any final thoughts about Generation X or about anything in general before we call it?
No. I think I'm ready to have this part of my X life
have it excised from your memory.
Yes, excommunicated from.
I think that sounds excellent.
Yes, let's execute the end to this podcast, or just execute me, whatever ends this X generation.
All right, you win. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, and we will see you next Sunday. And remember, it's not obscurity soon, it's obscurity now. You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and broadcast to Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes, and take notice of our various social media links if that's what you're into. I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on